Hi, a big hello to everybody who's joined us today for this webinar. We're going to be talking about next generation insurance websites, and this is Abhiraj, and I'll be walking you through a presentation where we'll talk about some key aspects which are relevant in terms of digital presence, acquisition, conversions, and what you could do with your website to actually make an incremental difference in terms of how you acquire and engage with customers online. Just in terms of how we want to cover the entire range of topics around insurance websites and how you could look at elevating to the next generation of websites. We've made this webinar into a two-part series, and the two parts are focused on acquisition and engagement and retention. So today is the first part where we'll be talking about how you could increase acquisition and conversion on insurance websites, and what are the best practices around that, what are some key strategies and tactics that you could employ, and what are the things that you should embrace and adopt which will enable you to perform better in terms of results on acquisition and conversion on your website. To set a quick agenda of what we intend to cover today on this webinar, we've focused on a few key assets of insurance websites where we've looked at general industry trends, we've looked at the websites of insurers across different types of practices, so whether it's general insurance or life or property and casualty, we've looked at various aspects, and we have underscored some areas of opportunity, and these areas of opportunity are what we're going to be focused on to talk about in today's webinar. After we walk you through some areas of opportunity where websites could be lacking potentially as on date, we'll walk you through some key elements of acquisition strategy and how digital acquisition can be enhanced by looking at some simple things which may make a big difference in terms of your overall acquisition and conversion online. Continuing in the same vein, we'll talk about some other key pillars of acquisition. We'll talk about content strategy. We'll talk about how search engine optimization can make a difference to how you're acquiring customers today. We'll talk a bit about microsites and why are they so relevant for the industry in terms of insurance and in terms of digital presence. And then, some more tactical stuff which will be around online video streaming, which sounds to be a very, very small step or small tactic in terms of an overall website. But we'll show you metrics which will tell you, how much it can make a difference to acquisition. We'll also cover the aspect of multi-channel engagement and how in today's times it can make a huge difference of how you engage with customers across channels and what it brings to you in terms of acquisition. And finally, we'll conclude with a roundup of some core digital technologies that can enable acquisition for you and help you achieve better numbers in terms of your conversions, the number of customers you can actually make through your website. I'll start by talking briefly about eDynamic. We are a digital marketing and technology agency, and we blend strategy, experience, and digital technology to enable customer acquisition and engagement. We are a 13-year-old company, and we've delivered more than 1,000 projects with more than 250 customers globally. We work with both mid-size as well as Fortune 500 organizations. And we have expertise across several verticals, as you can see on the slide. As a company, we are global with offices in 5 different countries, and we are on a fast track to growth with more than 300 employees, and we are slated to grow to more than 600 to 700 employees by the end of 2014. In terms of our practice areas, what we do is essentially represented in what you're seeing right now. As I said, we blend strategy, experience, and technology, and the kind of services that we offer under each practice area are represented in the schematic that you see. Strategy, we cover a range of practice areas within strategy, whether it's digital strategy, multi-channel acquisition, content, planning of campaigns, platform selection as far as digital technologies are concerned, e-commerce, analytics, and mobile. In terms of design, we have expertise across creative, research on user experience and usability, social media, campaign design, microsites, email, search, marketing, and advertising. And in terms of digital technology, we are focused on content management, e-commerce, community platforms, CRM, intranet and portal platforms such as SharePoint, business intelligence, marketing automation, mobile, and analytics. We have a global delivery model which makes it unique in the way that we engage with our customers. We have offices, as I said, across several locations, so we are near shore and local where it demands, and we can do a lot of work offshore through our 24/7 delivery center, which houses more than 200 employees. So let's talk about the general state of insurance websites and what are some of the areas of opportunity that we have kind of looked at for websites in general across the industry. And as you go through the next set of slides, you'll see that a lot of these attributes that we've kind of brought forward are very common amongst most insurance websites, indeed, most websites. But the important thing here is that we've shown you some results and some research that can pinpoint certain key areas of pain where sites are not doing as well as they should be on critical aspects of website features, design, or functionality. And our intent is to talk about those key pain points that may impact conversion and acquisition for you. When we look at insurance websites, the first factor that strikes across the board is that self-service on industry websites is in general not up to the mark. And what that translates to in terms of a website is that aspects like content and site search are two critical pillars of any website. Content is more to do with what the insurer stands for, what are some key practice areas, what are the industry norms around insurance, around products, and around special plans. But what we found missing was a lack. There's a distinct lack of connecting with the consumer's needs and what they want, and how our offerings and products align to those needs. And this inconsistency spreads, across, several, practice areas within, single insurer's website. So there might be certain sections which are adequately represented in terms of content, but there are others where there is a lot of generic about us kind of content, which really does not do much in terms of connecting with the end customer. Site search is critical, and the impact that it has on conversion is that it enables people to find a lot of information very quickly. So if site search really just does not work for typical tasks, then it can act as a dampener towards conversion, because people are just, they don't have the time to wait for sifting through a large amount of information when they search for it. So typical scenario is that if I search for something and if the search results are huge, they run into pages and not all of them are relevant, then I may get disinterested and just basically bounce off your website. Which means that essentially, as an insurer, you lost a potential customer or an opportunity to engage with a customer or prospect. And what is surprising is that search scored very, very low on a 10-point scale across, insurance websites, where we talked about what are the important things, features, and functions on the site in order of priority, and search scored lowest in that measurement. Across the board, the average rating for the industry was 5.2, and that's basically average of what it should be for a cutting-edge insurance website. Continuing in the same vein, we looked at digital adoption as a next parameter to gauge where the sites currently are, in terms of self-service functionality, in terms of enabling customers and prospects to not just find information, but also look at signing up, looking at getting additional information, looking at online access to accounts, looking at any kind of tracking functionality around if I have signed up and I need a product and I need a transaction, am I able to track where my request is? Criteria-based product selection was almost nil, which is a surprising thing, because when a consumer hits an insurance website, from consumer's perspective, they have certain needs or they have certain potential needs, and they would like to have access to tools and wizards that enable them to actually find the right product basis their need at any specific point in life. Or if they are, a general insurance prospect, then looking at any kind of functionality which enables them to find the right product quickly, whether it's search, whether it's a tool, whether it's some kind of a calculator, whether it's some kind of a self-assessment tool. Those tools are in general far too low at present on insurance websites as compared to some of the other verticals. The other thing that struck us, and if you see the metrics represented here, there is a lot of content about the company. So there is messaging about the company from the CEO's office, financial facts, and all those are important. But if you look at the columns on the third column, the fourth column, you see there are certain big holes there that emerge where wherever the consumer comes in, there is a lack of information, lack of features, lack of self-service tools for people to actually give in their information, sign up, and actually become a customer. So the net is that these are the features that really need to be adopted by insurance companies if they want to really give the kind of experience that their consumers are expecting. What we also found was that websites are being regarded as a one-way communication tool. Insurers are saying a lot of things about their product, their company. It's all about them to a large extent. And while there are exceptions to this, but there are far too few exceptions for us to be really representing those in this session. So one-way communication, we're talking about our products, we're talking about our company, we're talking about the good things that we've done in our history, but is there a need to listen to what the people have to say and what we can do for those people when they have expressed a certain need, or they may be at a stage where the insurer can probably look at gauging what their needs could be, and then fashioning their content, experience, and presentation on the same lines so that the connect is quick and conversions are higher. We also saw a dominance of traditional marketing, and which means that there is large-scale adoption of print, there's radio, there's television, there is in outdoor advertising. And what we also looked at was some kind of results and, how people are measuring their efforts and how they're actually going ahead with their marketing plans. And while, again, there are exceptions to a lot of these results, but in general, some of the industry trends are represented here. And the interesting thing here to look at is possibly in the way results are being measured or not being measured at all. And 54% of the people say they're not really measuring the results of traditional marketing. And the people who are actually doing that are doing that in a way that really may not be amenable with the trends today that we see in digital. Looking at results, putting them in spreadsheets and documents, sharing them within the team or with other stakeholders in the company. But again, there is no central view of how marketing as a function is performing, even if it's traditional marketing. And those kind of analytics and dashboards are missing across the board, in the industry. And there is an area of opportunity there to merge them with better tools. 62% of the respondents of a survey done recently to measure ROI in marketing said they don't measure them, they don't really measure marketing ROI. And even the other numbers you see here, the number of leads that are quoted, the number of leads that are sold or issued by the amount of revenue, the numbers are not good, A and B. The parameters on which these numbers are based on are still too generic. If you ask a marketing agency such as us, they'll say that we should probably not look at the number of leads that are quoted. There are other better ways and deeper ways to measure effectiveness of your marketing initiatives. Which brings us to talk about why did you see the numbers that you saw? Yeah, why are insurance websites not able to talk to the consumers, aptly at this point in time, or going forward, unless there is a shift in thinking, they may still find challenge going ahead. And we tried to analyze some of the reasons and present those in this webinar about why the sites as they are not really talking to the customer. And one of the primary reasons here is that your buyers basically change. Buyers keep changing, in the way that they connect, in the way that they expect information, and in the way they expect companies to understand what their preferences are. And these changes in buyer behavior are becoming very, very, apparent now than what they were 10 years ago. A lot of the insurance websites that we saw today are still in the same mode as they were, 10 years back, or even 7 to 8 years back, where the seller was in control. So you had a good-looking website with a lot of information, some amount of customer service, some amount of outside sales and inside sales effort, and basically it was spray and pray. You have a lot of brochures, data sheets, a lot of white papers, some testimonials, so on, and then you pack it all in onto your website and expect people to come in, spend time, look at all the things that you have, and some of them would even do that. And doubtless some of the things that are being put up on these sites would have been very good. But the problem lies in the fact that the trend has changed, and it's more self-service, and that's an understatement. But today, the biggest change is that the buyer wants to control what they want to buy, and if that be the basic foundation of your marketing effort, then a lot of other things have cropped up because the buyer is more in control today. They're looking at website content. They're also looking at several other fora, podcasts, screencasts, webinars, blogs, discussion groups. Your buyer is everywhere. Your potential buyer is scouring through all these channels and looking at ways to get information that is enriching and which is related to what they need. And this information search is basically why the buyer is in control, because they have multiple options to choose from where they can get good information. So your website really becomes front and center more so than ever before, because your website needs to communicate the right things and connect with customers in a contextual way. Talk to their needs, talk to what what can they do to fulfill the customer's needs, and that's amplified in this change that you see in terms of behavior. And the interesting thing is that this is not a phenomenon that has happened in a matter of a few years. Yes, we talked about the changes in buyer behavior on the previous slide, but the visual that you see now is basically a journey. It's a journey that most websites and most verticals have had to undertake, either by persuasion, by market factors, or either by driven by what the consumer wants, or also driven by how your business is changing, and how you're selling today as opposed to how you were selling in 2003, for instance. So it all started with brochure websites, and then the big .com boom, and the entire the advent of e-commerce and portals, and the first glimpse at what personalization could mean. And then once that boom went bust, we talked about more spray and pray kind of persuasive websites where marketing packed in a lot of stuff and then expected customers to basically react to what they had. But now it's a different ballgame. It is, if you were to select two words that can best describe how websites should be today, they would be contextual and collaborative. Contextual because unless you understand what your consumer has to say and what preferences and needs they have, you can never fashion anything which is relevant to what they need. And collaborative because customers need to engage with you today more so than ever, and they have the options, as I said, to do so. So the more you reach out to them and you hire your number of touch points and the right kind of content on those touch points, the more collaborative the entire process is. So you can basically walk hand in hand with a potential prospect across their discovery, the information seeking phase, and then basically make up their mind towards a decision on a product or service or offering that you have in a collaborative way. It's a question we keep asking. Most of our customers and prospects, we keep asking, where are you on the curve today? And the answers lead us to, then keep, paint a picture of what you are today, where you were yesterday, and where you want to go tomorrow. So, it's a kind of picture that we need to establish to understand what your thinking is in terms of what's important for your business. How do you see it changing? What kind of impact is there, in terms of your customer, your market, your business, your competition? All those have an impact, but I think the biggest thing is in looking at the mindset that is driving your marketing effort, and that's what we try to ask. Where are you on the curve? Are you looking at still, a tactical website where you're looking at some amount of lead generation, bringing your sales team into focus, looking at some amount of mobile presence, some email campaigns to some list rentals? Are you still acquiring leads that way or want to acquire leads that way? Or are you looking at methods where you try to optimize your digital presence to get higher engagement? Or you look at social media? Or you look at personalization on your website? Or you have very specific performance indicators on how your website is basically feeding in your marketing goals. So, it's a matter of looking at the mindset and, aligning with the flow and the trend, which is more towards the buyer, more towards an engaging conversation, more towards one-on-one conversations, and more towards looking at how you can build a complete customer profile. You have all the data. If you look inward, if you look at all your systems, look at your website, look at your other systems, the data is all with you. Look at your social profiles. You have the data. It's about bringing that data together and creating, customer profiles, which will then enable you to speak to every customer and prospect one-on-one. The interesting thing is that question that we keep asking our customers, and one we encourage people to ask themselves, is your website today truly converting visitors into prospects? And the answer is not simple. Some amount of Google Analytics plug into your site will show you some numbers on a dashboard, which you'll be happy to present in reports. But I think what we're talking about is truly a number that tells you that, look, my website is really performing well. Here's how. Because I got 500 people on my website in the past 1 week, and today I'm connected with 100 of those prospects. I'm having one-on-one conversations with them, and I'm not even utilizing my sales team. And I have a sales pipeline 1 month down the line, which includes 50 of these prospects. So, those are the kind of conversations we need to have with our customers, because, as I said, the trend is changing. It's more the numbers that you see from your standard analytics really don't tell you the true story. Let's talk about what you need. A strategic roadmap, yes, sounds a bit too high level, sounds a bit too far-fetched, but we're here to talk about how you could go about it. Understanding how clients buy and get organized, I think that's the most important thing. And that's what has changed. That's the behavior that has really changed. Be multi-channel, because you're increasing your chances to get more customers. Get your strategies right, and content is one. We'll talk about each of these. An exceptional website is another. Acquisition, looking at key aspects of acquisition, and we'll talk a bit about that as well. Looking at search, looking at social media, and then getting the insight that you need. The insight that you need comes with looking at the data that you have at your disposal, the data that is lying in your systems, and painting pictures of your prospects and customers, which you can put to better use. It's almost like saying that, look, I have a named account. I know this company is the right company for me. I need to go after them. So I put my energy, effort, and resources into mapping all the right kind of people within that company, and then going after them, reaching them by email, by phone, or through any other medium that I can muster, and then trying to speak to them and, getting them to align to what I have to say. That's from a B2B perspective. From a B2C perspective, if I have an audience profile built up where I have, different categories or buckets of, profiles in terms of priority of targeting, I would basically do everything that I want or I can, to go after those consumers. And that is the kind of insight or single-mindedness that you need even in your marketing effort today, not just sales, but in the marketing effort. So it's almost like approaching an account-based sales strategy from wearing a marketer's hat, if you will. So that's the kind of insight that we're talking about. And finally, we talk a bit about the technology that can enable you to do that, and it's essential that we do recognize the role of technology, because a lot of these technologies are already existing with most insurance companies. They are either using them, but using them not in a way that can, guarantee greater success, or they might not have touched upon the usage of a certain technology that can create real value or real benefit or real incremental value for them over the long term. So we'll talk about that, in a few minutes from now. The key elements of an acquisition strategy, and this is the attempt of where your website is performing, not performing, and whether you're actually truly driving conversions into your sales funnel. Lead management, experiences that are dynamic and talking one-on-one with customers and prospects. Analytics need to be really sharp and really vetted to where they represent what truly will make a difference, and not just some numbers that every analytics tools can guarantee. Lead scoring, personalization. And by lead scoring, I'll talk a bit about that in the subsequent set of slides. And personalization is equally important, because if you have the data that I spoke about gathering insight, then the best way to have conversations is to personalize your website and talk to consumers one-on-one. The other aspects of the acquisition process are, of course, driving traffic is where all your lead generation activity is going to happen. And irrespective of whether you're using digital advertising, whether you're using social media, whether you're using search marketing to drive traffic, what happens on your website is conversion, and then there is nurturing. Nurturing is the next step after people have actually come onto your website and looked at what you have to say, probably had some good conversations with you, downloaded some material, probably signed up for something, and then nurturing those leads into a stage where they are ready to talk to, a sales rep and talk about certain key products that they may have liked or something that is fitting at a point where they're ready to have a conversation with somebody which can actually lead to a decision at some point is where the nurturing process hands over to sales. So this is a complete blueprint of an acquisition process at a very high level. And we'll talk about certain key aspects here. In this presentation, we'll talk about conversion going forward. One of the most important things is that the buying life cycle is key to how buyers go about their business in terms of finding a product, service, offering a solution. And the earlier, as a marketer, you understand that and wrap your entire strategy around this buying cycle, the better it is for you. So what I intend to say here is that the buying life cycle plays a major role in the way that you shape your communication. And the important thing here is that where does the buying life cycle apply to you? How do you actually perform, or how do you actually perform at various stages of the life cycle? What actions, tactics, and strategies do you apply at every stage of the life cycle? And we have kind of presented that to you over the next set of slides. And I think it all begins with segmenting your audience. Segmenting the audience, profiling them, creating categories, creating priorities of whom you want to target. And then looking at the buying life cycle to define engagement. So segmenting the audience, mapping the messages to the right segment and their objectives, and then looking at implementing the right kind of platform. So overall, it's about first defining your buying cycle, segmenting your audience, mapping the right kind of messages to that audience at the right time and the right place across multiple channels, and then implementing the right kind of technology that enables you to reach them seamlessly. Companies that are actually doing these kind of structured processes around marketing are enjoying greater success, and they're actually looking at much higher conversion, basically, in terms of how they're acquiring customers. So if you are segmenting your visitors and if you're not segmenting your visitors, there's daylight between the two categories of companies. We talk a bit about aligning content to the segments that you've created. So it's a very interesting thing, and it applies to any website in any vertical. But when you're talking about insurance, this is a very need-based activity. It can be a pretty complicated decision at a number of times, especially if a customer is at a stage where they already have insurance, they're looking at some other options. It can be a complicated decision. So mapping the right content to look at which stage is your customer in right now, what kind of information would they need to move forward, and what are their fears, what are their uncertainties, what are some of the doubts that they have that can be overcome via giving them the right kind of content. Talking about a content strategy, we did a quick survey, and some of the challenges of content are very apparent with websites. So the two biggest challenges are creating engaging content, and of course, measuring how that content actually is it really impacting your performance. And we talk about a successful content strategy, and the most important thing here is that it's a definition of your business goals and objectives that ultimately creeps down to your content, evaluation of your customers, and then becoming a thought leadership source, looking at various ways in which you can package and wrap and create useful content around what your business is and associated aspects of that business, not just talking about your product, your service, talking about trends, talking about ways in which your offerings blend into industry trends and what happens with customers generally at the stage at which they are does make a big, big difference in terms of how your content is perceived by customers. Adding value in terms of a contest, video, always makes a difference. And then it's important to measure how your content is impacting your performance. There are very simple goals to how your content can actually make a difference. You should incent people to actually fill out forms, sign up with you, looking at, if you've done a great white paper, or done a very good blog, you should look at special landing pages within your website where there's focus only on that piece of content that you've created, and so that people can actually spend time on that. And looking at engagement metrics on your site, look like, entrances, page views, how many times are people visiting a particular page and what are they downloading there. And I'm talking about not generic website statistics. This is about special sections, a product section, a section where you have some thought leadership material newly created and you created landing pages around that, looking at engagement metrics around such pages and sections of your site. The importance of thought leadership material is not understated, and there are a lot of examples of people doing great things. We've shown a few examples as part of this presentation, and what it shows is that, again, it's a business decision to align with a particular positioning or value proposition. The content and everything down the line flows from that decision, and that's what we've tried to represent in the next set of visuals that you see, where content strategy is, again, focused on key concepts, and these are business decisions, like demography, mobility, environment, finance. All these are aspects which are governing in the way that you want to say what you have to say. It's the core value proposition, and therefore all the content is wrapped around these key concepts on the site. It's a good example of how content can make a difference on your site. Some of the other examples could be looking at alternative content delivery channels. There's Twitter, there's newsletters, there's a blog. You can use YouTube, you can use Facebook. Again, giving your content more breathing space and allowing it to seep out to maximum number of customers and prospects really makes a difference. Again, as most people will tell you, it's about the customers. If it's about the customer, then it needs to be timely to what they are seeking at a particular stage, it needs to be compelling, and needs to be sales neutral as well, along with being well organized. So there are very simple steps towards how content can make a difference in terms of making an impact on conversions. The other important thing is context, and content without context is really looking at a half empty glass of water. And the problem is that a lot of customers do not assume that the company selling to them does not really know them. So in today's times, customers expect companies to know that, companies to know information about the customer, whether what are their predispositions, what are their key characteristics, demographics, what is their location, social attributes, buying habits. This is data that is all available. It could be either generated through your website. People are visiting your site, leaving behind some footprint that you can look at and seeing, what kind of stuff are you reading, what are you downloading, which sections are you going to. And then there's a lot of information that can be obtained through questionnaires, surveys, feedback forms, and so on and so forth. Externally supplied, there's a lot of information available in the industry. Looking at that information can create a lot of information about a potential customer or prospect of yours. This information needs to be basically aligned to what you want to say, how you want to say it, and then what are the delivery mechanisms that you want to use, how do you want to engage with a customer for whom the entire information is with you. That is what lends context to any piece of content that you put out on your site, any social profile, on mobile, or any other outlet or channel. Content requires a common view, and the important thing here is to note that obtaining that integral view of a customer across different touch points is what drives the maximum amount of success. So the more personal you get, the better success you will have, is something that we've been saying right through this presentation. And you can only get more personal when you have the right kind of information to personalize your content, your experience, and the way you approach your customer or prospect. And then employing a closed-loop engagement cycle is the next step, where they look at all the aspects that lead to closed-loop engagement. And we talked about some of these aspects in the slides previous to this. Insights, behavioral data, capturing reaction. These are all information inputs which lead to what your content should be, how it can be optimized and delivered by you so that it creates the maximum amount of impact within the segment that you've identified. Again, companies adopting this type of an approach are likely to see more sales. More sales means more conversions, more results, more acquisitions, and therefore a better performing marketing engine, especially on digital. We talked briefly about search engine optimization, and it's a key aspect for most insurance companies because of a number of reasons. It is the one way where you can really ensure a lot of visibility and findability. And players in the insurance industry who are focused on search optimization are likely to have more success as opposed to others, because it is there, it's a very simple reason. They are being found more often than not, and therefore, with the information search overdrive that consumers are showing today, what is being found is where people are going, and therefore, search optimization just basically makes a big, big difference. When we look at some key aspects of search for your website, we would say, and there's a lot to this that can be said, but just for the sake of this presentation, I think some of the important things that we can say is that your data is important, needs to be connected to similar data across your website. So we're talking about metadata, we're talking about having keyword-rich content, we're talking about a lot of research into your competition and into the kind of products that you plan to sell or are selling, and then looking at how you could align all that content from a search perspective. Some key aspects and some key tips. Looking at long-tail keywords is probably the most difficult to do in search optimization because they're more competitive. But then you might be spending thousands of dollars doing paid search advertising in the same set of keywords. So if you're optimizing for long-tail keywords, the chances of success are higher because, again, it caters to customers who may not be in a position to type in exact keywords to find what they're looking for. So looking at long-tail keywords adds to the value that you can derive out of search engine optimization. And then looking at things like keeping a checkout process external to your site or in a separate section of your site so that it does not impact the rest of the site. As an example, on-page credibility is very, very important because especially in the insurance industry, it plays a big role in having the right kind of messaging around disclaimers and legal terms. And then there are more topics and around SEO, and there are a lot of tactics that can be applied, and looking at 301 redirects and customizing each individual page or key pages within your site to optimize better against your competition. Some more examples of what truly drives conversion includes examples of microsites. We talked about websites so far, and we talked about what can actually make a difference on your website. how does, what type of role is a microsite plays is very, very revealing. And the most important thing is that it's basically another brand outlet for you. It is an avenue where you can do focus lead generation, because a microsite is not expected to be a mirror of your existing corporate site, because it can be different. It can be focused on one or two products or one or two campaigns. It can have themes. Your microsite can actually be just around a simple 2-day or 7-day workshop that you plan to have externally. It can be around a survey. It can be around a feedback mechanism, anything at all. You can create a microsite around an industry topic. You see examples of that right now on your screen. So they're a great source of lead generation because they add to the traffic that you can generate. They add to focus traffic because microsite almost, more often than not, will always be about a particular topic, product, a product launch, or something very, very specific. So the traffic generated is pretty specific. And it does make an impact to search marketing, to social media, to everything, because you're adding another outlet, another channel for yourself or for your product. Some best practices should be short and sweet, should be readable by search engines. There should be a very strong content and value proposition messaging on the microsite, and very clear calls to action. A lot of times we've seen a number of our customers in the insurance industry resorting to time-bound microsite campaigns when they have to generate a higher amount of leads over a particular month, or let's say over a particular period, as opposed to their websites. Although they don't have a product to launch, they don't have a campaign necessary to launch at a particular time, but still they would go to microsite way to generate higher number of leads over a particular period of time. There are some case studies around that as well. A lot of people are using this tactic because it does drive a lot of focus traffic. Some of the numbers that you would see are astronomically high because microsites do tend to create those kind of numbers with the right kind of campaign planning. Online video streaming is the other important thing that we intend to cover. It's one of the last things that we're covering in terms of factors that can impact conversion. And some of the statistics that you see on the screen right now show you that online video streaming is here to stay in the insurance industry. And the kind of impact that it has is that there are examples, there are case studies around that. And what you see right now is basically a very good example of how video has been used as a tool to propagate a message and drive leads to your website. It's connecting, it's engaging, and it drives leads. Finally, multi-channel, and we all know the advent of multiple devices, mobile, has created a big outlet for marketers. But the problem is, how do you truly leverage it? And that's where the important thing about getting aligned with content, being aligned with the way you want your experience to be, matters, and that's what we're going to talk about. So, without spending too much time on the statistics of the fact that there is a boom in the number of device and mobile users, and especially smartphones, tablets. The important thing is that a lot of people are already looking at mobile. They're doing a lot of advertising in mobile on top publisher sites. But that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that there is a need to first adopt a mobile-first strategy. And what it means is that with a mobile, people are likely to see your website, your microsite, or your social profile at any place, any size of device, at any given point of time. So therefore, the way you approach your site should be completely different, because you need to start thinking about mobile first and web later. Why it matters is because if you use the right kind of technologies to create your mobile site, then you will do a good job. You'll create a great mobile site, but it will be still different than what your website can be. And therein lies the catch. If you're looking at an iPad and if you're looking at your desktop, your website should render exactly on both the channels, on both the devices, as opposed to being curtailed on a mobile side and being, responsively, fully viewable on your desktop. So there is responsive design, which is basically the mobile-first approach or strategy that we strongly propose. And what it means is that you design only once, you don't design separately for mobile or devices. And you design in a way that if tomorrow there is some other device that is coming up, which is of a different resolution, size, type, you're still in a position to actually tweak what you have to cater to that new device as well. So getting to a mobile-first approach at the earliest truly makes a big difference. And finally, I want to spend a minute talking about some technologies that can really impact conversion. And we've talked about factors around websites. We've talked about multi-channel. We've talked about key acquisition tactics like search, like video, like social, and like microsites. But the important thing is that do you have the underlying technology in place or the right kind of technologies in place to enable you to do a lot of the things that we've discussed in this presentation today. And the interesting thing here is that these platforms are all there. Most companies are using majority of these platforms, or most of these platforms are being used across the board. It's just a matter of bringing these platforms together and making them work better for you. What we say is that there are 2 or 3 key platforms that you should look at adopting and integrating first up in order to create the right kind of acquisition infrastructure for you. And I'll take a minute to explain that. Content management systems play a big role in driving conversion and acquisition because there are several good reasons. And of course, the biggest reason is that they enable you to personalize your messaging and make one-on-one conversations dynamically with your prospect and customers. That in itself is a very, very big reason that can impact conversion and acquisition. A good content management system, which is marketing friendly, can enable you to create the kind of experiences, the kind of messaging on the fly, dynamically across geographies, across audience segments, easily, without spending too much time, without worrying about, this is too complicated for me. Stuff like that can be set aside if you have good CMS in place. That can really and truly make a difference in how you put out your message and the right, relevant, and contextual message to your customers. Analytics, of course, plays a big role. It always has and it always will. But what's important is that analytics should be with a view to certain specific goals, how you can measure whether your content is delivering, creating specific goals around your content and whether your audience is actually hitting those goals, whether you're getting the right kind of numbers. And then looking at actual conversions and how you're actually impacting the sales funnel through your website is very, very important from an analytics and reporting perspective. Marketing platforms do make a big difference. We talked about the impact of the nurturing part in the acquisition process in one of the earlier slides that I presented. And it's for nurturing that marketing automation platforms play a huge role in that phase because they are able to integrate with your website, and therefore a lot of the information that is present on your website database can be used by your marketing automation platform to send custom email messages. And there's a ton of stuff that you can do here. You can onboard customers. You can send out information about a product, about a plan. You can track, payment processes. You can track everything basically on email by automating your marketing platform with your website or with your custom portals. So it is in the interest of a lot of companies, especially in insurance, that they look at a good marketing automation platform that can truly enable the email to be automated and in sync with your website. CRM will always play a big role. It always does play a big role with the insurance industry, and therefore integrating your CRM with your website and with your other automation platforms is what we suggest. The benefits of CRM are huge. We already know that. But what we try to say is that integrating your CMS with your CRM and your marketing automation platform basically gives you a common customer context, because there's a lot of data in your CRM which is prospect-based, customer-based, which can be harnessed and used very well by your marketing automation platform to send out custom personalized emails. And similarly, there's a lot of data in your web CMS that can be used to inform your sales team on your CRM. If a particular prospect has been downloading certain amount of material from your website, your CMS has been recording that, and if that information is passed on to your CRM, the next time your sales rep picks up a phone to call that prospect, the conversation is likely to be very relevant and focused. So those are some examples of how these three systems can work together and truly make a big difference in terms of your acquisition and conversion programs. Well, that brings us to an end to this session that we had, and I'm open to any questions that you may have, and I'm happy to speak to any clarification that you seek as part of this webinar.
Thank you, Abhiraj. But unfortunately, we won't be able to take questions because we're running out of time. So we'll have to get to these unanswered questions via email after the webinar is over. So at this point of time, I would like to thank everyone for attending our webinar. We hope you found it informative. The webcast will be available on our website within the next 3 business days. And we will also be sharing the webcast URL with all the attendees via email. Please feel free to reach out to us at contact@edynamic.net for any questions you may have. Thank you once again.
The organ